You know, there are these moments in history that are like a hinge, where everything just turns. An army makes a desperate gamble, another stands its ground, and in that collision, the entire fate of a nation hangs in the balance. Well, today we're diving into one of the biggest of them all, the Battle of Gettysburg.
3 days. That's it. 3 absolutely brutal days in the summer of 1863. And get this, we're talking about roughly 165,000 soldiers, the largest armies of the war, all converging on this one tiny, unsuspecting town in Pennsylvania.
So why this battle? What actually happened over those 3 short days that made everyone call Gettysburg the undisputed turning point of the war? Well, that's exactly the question we're going to answer right now.
Okay, so to really get a grip on Gettysburg, we have to rewind just a bit to the summer of 1863. You might think the Confederacy was riding high after some big wins, but the truth is they were in a state of absolute crisis.
I mean, the South was literally starving. There were bread riots breaking out in the cities, soldiers were deserting, and things out west were collapsing around Vicksburg. Now, General Robert E. Lee, he feels like his army is pretty much invincible after a huge victory at Chancellorsville. But he's a smart guy, and he knows that big picture, the South is losing a war of attrition. The Union, on the other hand, yeah, their morale was in the dumps, but they still had all that industrial power just churning away.
So Lee decides his only real option is this incredibly high-stakes, all-or-nothing invasion of the North. He's got a few goals. 1, feed his starving army from Pennsylvania's rich farms. 2, give his home state of Virginia a break from the fighting. And 3, the big one, he desperately hopes that a major victory on Union soil will convince Britain to finally recognize the Confederacy, and maybe, just maybe, force Washington to sue for peace.
So, Lee's army, all 75,000 of them, starts marching north into Pennsylvania. But he has a massive problem. He is marching completely blind.
What does that mean, blind? Well, his cavalry commander, a guy named J.E.B. Stuart, who was supposed to be Lee's eyes and ears, decides to go on this big, flashy ride completely around the Union Army to grab some headlines. The result? Lee has absolutely no idea where the 95,000-strong Union Army is, and that army, now under a brand-new commander, George Meade, is closing in on him fast.
And the battle happens here not because of some grand strategy, but by pure chance. Gettysburg was just this little crossroads town, a natural meeting point for anyone moving through the area. The biggest battle in American history literally started by accident, when one of Lee's divisions marched into town looking for shoes and ran smack into Union cavalry. So that first day is just chaos. The fight escalates way beyond what either side expected. The Union forces get hammered and are pushed back through the town in a desperate retreat. But here's the crucial part. They manage to rally on this fantastic line of hills to the south, Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill. Lee sees the opportunity and tells his general on the scene to attack if practicable. But the general hesitates. The attack never happens, and that single moment of hesitation lets the Union Army dig in. It's a decision that will define the entire rest of the battle.
All right, so when the sun comes up on day 2, the Union Army is holding what one of its generals called the best defensive position he'd ever seen. They've got the high ground, and they've got interior lines, which just means they can shift troops around to threaten spots way faster than the Confederates can.
The Union commander, General Meade, is in an almost unbeatable spot. Lee's plan is to hit both ends of the Union's fishhook-shaped line at the same time. But before he can even launch his attack, one of Meade's own generals is about to put the whole army in jeopardy.
This guy, General Dan Sickles, he doesn't like his assigned position. So, completely against orders, he just moves his entire corps of thousands of men forward off the high ground and into this totally exposed position in a peach orchard. This creates a huge, vulnerable bulge in the Union line, a perfect target for the Confederates to attack from multiple sides. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
What follows is just some of the most savage and desperate fighting of the entire war. The battle just swirls through these places that have become legendary: the peach orchard, the wheat field, and a field of giant boulders called Devil's Den. The Union line is stretched so thin, it's about to snap.
Now, the key to the entire Union position, the anchor of their whole flank, is this small, rocky hill called Little Round Top. And because of Sickles' boneheaded move, it's completely undefended. As Confederates race to take it, a Union brigade gets there just in the nick of time. At the very end of the line is the 20th Maine. They fight off wave after wave of attacks until they run out of ammunition. In a moment of sheer desperation, their commander, a college professor named Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, orders a bayonet charge.
His men swing down the hill, and the exhausted, stunned Confederates break and run. That single charge saves the entire Union flank from collapse.
So, after failing to break the Union Army on day 2, Lee becomes convinced that their center must be weak. Against the strong objections of his most trusted general, James Longstreet, he plans one last epic all-or-nothing assault right up the middle. At 1 p.m. on July 3rd, as many as 170 Confederate cannons open fire at once. It's the largest artillery bombardment ever seen in the Americas. For nearly 2 hours, the ground just shakes, but all the smoke makes it impossible to see, and most of the cannonballs actually fly right over the Union front line, hitting supply wagons and things in the rear.
Believing he's silenced the Union guns, Lee gives the order. Nearly 13,000 Confederate soldiers step out from the woods and begin a march across 1 mile of open field, straight into the heart of the Union line. People who saw it said it was both magnificent and utterly terrifying to watch.
Well, it turns out the Union artillery had just been conserving ammunition. They open up with devastating effect. The Confederates are getting hit from the front, from the left, and from the right. The attack, known forever as Pickett's Charge, is a complete catastrophe. In less than an hour, thousands of men are killed, wounded, or captured. A few hundred actually make it to the Union line, but they're quickly overwhelmed. As the shattered remnants of the charge stumble back to their own lines, Lee himself rides out to meet them. He takes full and complete responsibility for the disaster, telling them, "It's all my fault." His great gamble, his invasion of the North, is over.
The battle is finished. On July 4th, Independence Day of all days, Lee begins his long, sorrowful retreat back to Virginia in a pouring rainstorm, leaving behind a scene of just unimaginable horror.
The Battle of Gettysburg was the deadliest of the entire Civil War. In just those 3 days, there were over 50,000 casualties. For the Confederacy, that number was catastrophic. It was more than a third of Lee's entire army, veteran soldiers that the South simply could not replace.
And this is what really makes it the turning point. On the exact same day that Lee began his retreat, the Confederate fortress of Vicksburg out west surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant. This 1-2 punch was devastating. The Union now controlled the entire Mississippi River, splitting the Confederacy in two. Any chance of recognition from Britain was off the table for good. The South would fight on for nearly 2 more years, but it would never again have the strength to threaten the North. The high tide of the Confederacy had crested at Gettysburg, and now it was receding for good.
A few months later, President Abraham Lincoln came to that battlefield to help dedicate a national cemetery. In a speech that lasted just 2 minutes, he gave meaning to all that terrible sacrifice. He redefined the war. It wasn't just a struggle to save the Union anymore. He said it was a fight to prove that a nation conceived in liberty, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, could endure and would not perish from the earth.